expectations weren't super high for the Bruins this season, but at this point, with another 3-1 series lead having been accumulated, they quite simply can't afford to not make it to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Thursday, May 2nd, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. Free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes, cool playing pieces, hilarious emojis to trash talk your friends. Download Monopoly Go now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game 6, Bruins, Maple Leafs tonight. It is a critical game for the Boston Bruins, not in the sense that it's a must-win, but kind of a defining game for this core, and we're going to touch on that here in a moment. First, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins. You can find me, my dad jokes, hockey thoughts at Ian C. McLaren, lifelong Bruins fan, seen more disappointments than successes, let's be honest, but this is an opportunity tonight to get things done and to put a positive on a season that wasn't meant to be the highest of highs. Let's be honest. The centennial season, it's a transition year where the Boston Bruins are moving from the core of Patrice Bergeron, David Krejci, and passing the captaincy on to Brad Marchand while looking for steps forward from Charlie McAvoy, David Pastrnak, and incorporating some younger guys into the lineup like Mason Lohrei, Jeremy Swayman being elevated to 1A, Johnny Beecher, who should be in there. Matt Poitras got some time this season. Speaking of the boys, quick shout out to friend of the podcast, Mariana, for sending me the boys 2023-24 t-shirt. So great to have here for Game 6, along with this playoff rally towel, which I will hopefully be waving in my family room later on today. Again, nobody's under the illusion that this team is a Stanley Cup contender. All right. And if you came into this season thinking the Bruins would be in a first round playoff series against Auston Matthews, William Nylander, Mitch Marner, John Tavares, Morgan Riley, the Toronto Maple Leafs, yeah, it's a bit of a toss-up, coin flip. The reality is, though, the Bruins have did put together a 3-1 series lead. They're still up in this series with hopefully, they only need one more, but two opportunities at max to close things out. And because of what happened last year, there's pressure to finish this and get to the second round. And that would be a success, in my opinion, to get to the second round, take on the Florida Panthers, see what happens. I don't expect either of Boston or Toronto to beat Florida. They're a very, very good team. But you never know what's going to happen once you get into the playoffs and a playoff series plays itself out. But to lose to Toronto and not advance after that 3-1 lead, with William Nylander missing a bunch of games, with Auston Matthews ailing, missing Game 5, questionable for Game 6, to not get this done, there's a lot at stake here because, the Bruins under Jim Montgomery are now 0-4 in potential closeout games. They lost Game 5, 6, and 7 to Florida last year. They lost Game 5 to Toronto this year. Even dating back to 2022, they lost Game 7 to the Carolina Hurricanes. That is not a great streak to be on. And if you lose again, it raises questions about Jim Montgomery's ability to win as coach. Fantastic regular season, twice in a row, a historic one last year, one that exceeded expectations this year. Playoffs, though, it's been a mixed bag. And their record so far is what? 7-5? No, not even 7. 6 and how many games did they play last year? They were 3-4 last year. They're 3-2 this year. So 6-6. That's not great. And it also raises questions about your core. Like, where's the leadership here? Brad Marchand as captain. Stake your claim as captain and write your own story here by getting the Bruins further this year than they were able to last year in that historic regular season. David Pastrnak. We're going to talk about him more later on in the podcast, but it hasn't been an easy go for him in this series. And he's coming off a fantastic regular season once again. He scored 47 goals, 63 assists, 110 points. So far in the playoffs, 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points, below a point per game average. And that needs to rectify itself. In the regular season, he had 382 shots over the course of 82 games. That's 4.65 shots per game. Right now, he's averaging 3 shots per game. It raises questions about his ability to perform in the playoffs. Now, of course, Toronto's defense has been keying in on him, and thankfully, the secondary scoring has been there. Jake DeBrusk, Trent Frederick chipping in, but David Pastrnak, there's going to be questions, fair or not, about his performance if they lose and if he doesn't come up with a big game. Charlie McAvoy, same thing. The goaltending, same thing. Fantastic in the regular season. If they lose this series, so far it hasn't been because of goaltending. Obviously, Jeremy Swayman has been fantastic, but a losing record in these critical games, you start to get, Tuukka Rask was not immune to it. He was the winningest goalie in franchise history. He had fantastic save percentages in the playoffs, but you don't win those critical games. You get tabbed as a guy who can't win the big game. That's just what happens. So there is a lot riding on the Bruins finishing off this series. Again, the expectations weren't high coming into the season. It's a transition year. You want to do the best you can while absorbing those salary cap overages for Krejci and Bergeron. You want to see if Coyle and Zaka can carry the load down the middle, which they have. You want to incorporate some youth into the lineup. You want to, kind of pass on the leadership torch. All of that has been successful so far. And again, there were some people who didn't even think this team would make the playoffs, much less make the second round. But when you go up 3-1, the expectations are ramped up. And because of what happened last season, if history repeats itself there, and if they go 0-7 in their last stretch of elimination games dating back to 2022, there's going to be a ton of questions about this core, about the goaltending, and that's just noise you don't need after what's been a pretty successful campaign to date. Get to the second round at least. Enjoy maybe finishing off the Leafs, ending them as we know them, and reassess in the offseason. That's what we hope is going to happen. That's what's at stake. Questions about Jim Montgomery's abilities in the playoffs, questions about the core, everything. That's what's at stake. And you don't need those negative vibes going into the offseason. It's been a fairly successful, positive campaign to date. Get to the second round, see what happens, and let's just eliminate that unnecessary noise over the offseason. All right, coming up, we're going to discuss the goaltending question and who needs to step up here in Game 6. We'll discuss that here as the podcast continues. All right, we got to pause here and discuss Monopoly Go. I know I've been talking about it a lot lately, but I just can't stop thinking about it because it is so incredibly fun. Here's the deal. You can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get, like unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. There's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. Always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on with Monopoly Go. Thanks so much once again, friends, for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. Free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And you can also check out the Locked On Sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. News, analysis, opinions all day long. Free on the Locked On Sports Today YouTube channel and on the Amazon Fire TV channels app. Check it out today. All right. Goaltending. Who is going to be in net for the Boston Bruins tonight? I floated the idea yesterday that I said I would go with Linus Ullmark in Game 6. I qualified that later by saying I think that's what they might do. A lot of backlash over that decision, and here's why I say that. Ullmark was very good in Game 2 despite the loss, and Jeremy Swayman he's only played 4 games in a row once. You have this goalie rotation, you might as well use it. Now, having said that, if you look at last year, Linus Ullmark had that shaky Game 5. They went back to him in Game 6, and then finally went to Swayman for Game 7. Game 5 was not at all lost because of Jeremy Swayman. He was simply fantastic. And while there is something to be said about the goalie rotation, Jeremy Swayman has the top save percentage in the postseason among goalies who have played at least 4 games so far. Now, Joseph Woll, he's played in 2 games, 4 periods. He's got a .970 save percentage for the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Bruins have only scored 1 goal on him so far in his time. Swayman, though, has played 4 games. He's 3-1 with a .952 save percentage. Now, Linus Ullmark is up there as well. He ranks 8th among all goalies so far in the playoffs with a .912 save percentage. You really can't go wrong with either guy, let's be honest. You have last year's Vezina winner. You have last year's Jennings Trophy winners. 2 1A options in net. You can't really go wrong. We'll see what they do. You could easily go with Ullmark for Game 6. If that doesn't work out, you give Swayman a bit extra rest and go back to him for Game 7. You could go with Ullmark, who's a bit fresher and hungry for playing time, or you just stick with Swayman, who has been lights out so far for the Boston Bruins. It's maybe the guy at the other end of the ice that you have to be a bit more worried about. Joseph Woll looked very good for the Leafs in Game 5. Different look than Samsonov, who was like, you just get the puck on net, things could happen and go in. But again, this isn't the same situation as last year. Swayman didn't struggle in Game 5. He's still the hot hand despite having lost game 5. And I guess if you start him and they lose game 6, you could go with Ullmark for game 7. I mean, they've just set themselves up here for a bit of a decision to be made. And I don't envy Jim Montgomery, Bob Essensa having to make that decision. Now, yesterday, the Bruins were saying all the right things. Charlie McAvoy said they had a productive meeting. It was a lot of things they needed to hear and needed to see, and they're going to be better for it. They reviewed the game from Tuesday night, what went wrong. They started talking about how they need to get better, Jim Montgomery said. Some of that's physical, some of it's mental, some of it's staying in the moment. He didn't think they did a good enough job staying in the moment on Tuesday night, and that's what they're looking for tonight. He also made it very clear, Montgomery did, that he upset about the way the Bruins played in game 5 and that he doesn't accept it. He said, quote, "I'm still pissed off, just being honest. I don't understand and I don't accept our play, so I'm going to be pissed off until the puck drops Thursday." Now, they're not thinking about last year per se. He said he has no problem talking about last year because failing or having failures in life and not learning from them is when you can repeat stuff. It's picking yourself back up, talking and being honest with each other about where we're at and how we can get better. All of this sounds good, but they need their top guys to step up. I said this yesterday. Brad Marchand, David Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy. None of those 3 guys were good enough in game 5, and they need to step up. And we'll discuss that here more. Now, when it comes to the changes that Jim Montgomery made, like, it's easy to say you're pissed off at how the guys played, but you also have to be kind of pissed off at yourself for maybe making some decisions that were questionable. And he said when it doesn't work out, it comes with the territory, second, third, fourth guessing, and rightfully so. But he said he was comfortable with the decisions that he made, why he made them, and the criticism that comes with it. He did admit that Brazeau looked rusty. He hadn't played in a month. And he did still have a couple offensive plays, but not as fresh. And that's why it made no sense to take Johnny Beecher out and put in Brazeau. We'll see if he course corrects and goes with the faceoff guy for tonight's game, where they really struggled in game 5. He said Beecher and Shattenkirk have always responded when they get back in the lineup with a really good effort. So that gives you confidence to put them back in. Please do so. Shattenkirk has some familiarity with Parker Witherspoon on the third D pairing. Forbort is another option, but you just saw Brazeau rusty. So why throw him into a defensive role when he's going to be rusty as well? He's been out even longer. You could take out Maroon perhaps and put in Beecher, go with the JB line, or James Van Riemsdyk, but I say go back to the lineup from game 3 and 4, what worked on the road in Toronto in those games, and just finish this series tonight. But some guys do need to step up, and we'll discuss that here as the podcast continues. The NHL and NBA playoffs are in full swing. It's winner take all time, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. And just for example, if you look at the over-under for tonight's Game 6 between the Bruins and the Maple Leafs, it is set at 5.5. $150 in bonus bets on any winning $5 bet right now at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every playoff shot count on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, the reason the Bruins lost Game 5 was not goaltending. It was not face-offs. It was not anything other than their best players, quite simply, not being very good. And earlier, I discussed how for the Bruins to be successful, they're going to need to get secondary scoring. And Trent Frederick, Jake DeBrusk co-lead the team right now in goals this series with Brad Marchand at 3 apiece. Those two guys specifically had to come up big, and they have. DeBrusk with 3 power play goals, Frederick with 3 even strength goals, Marchand with 2 power play goals and even strength goal. Those 3 guys have been very good. And now it is up to some other guys to step up. First of all, Charlie Coyle, Pavel Zacha, each with 2 assists apiece. They have yet to score goals in this one. Hey, I don't need them to score, but if they can set up another 2 goals apiece, that would be fantastic. Morgan Geekie with 1 goal, 1 assist. He's been getting some prime minutes on the top line. It'd be nice to see him come out flying, but David Pastrnak needs to have his best game of the series. Yes, he's been the focus of Toronto's shutdown defensive mindset. Guys have been getting physical with him. They've been making it tough on him. He's only got 15 shots through 5 games, which is well down from his season average in shots on goal per game. But he needs to find a way to break through here. And again, like I said off the top, what's at stake here? It's not like career defining, but reputations are made in the playoffs. And David Pastrnak has always been, despite what people might want you to believe, has always been a very good player in the playoffs. All right. He last year he had 5 goals in that 7-game series loss to the Panthers. He had 6 points the year before against the Hurricanes. 15 points in 11 games the year before that. He is a more than point per game player over his career. 83 points in 82 career playoff games. 37 goals, 46 assists. But if you look at that, that's 82 games, 37 goals, 46 assists. If Pastrnak were to record that in the regular season, that would be seen as a disappointing regular season for David Pastrnak. Now, yes, things are keyed in the playoffs. The focus is different. The coverage is different. You don't have as much open space to work with, but the best players find a way to get it done. They find those open spaces, they find their opportunities, and there's a reason why Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl lead the way in scoring so far in the playoffs. Cale Makar, Matthew Tkachuk, Mikko Rantanen, Nathan McKinnon. These are all guys who are leading in scoring right now in the playoffs. The Bruins don't have anybody in the top 10. David Pastrnak needs to have a big game here. No question about it. Now, again, we have to remember that it's not the same context as the regular season, but the best players find ways to elevate their games when they matter most. And we need that kind of performance from David Pastrnak here tonight. That would be really great to see. Hampus Lindholm didn't have his best game the other night. Charlie McAvoy has, let's see here. Where's Charlie McAvoy? He's got 4 assists through 5 games. Get the puck on net. Danton Heinen's only got 1 assist. James Van Riemsdyk with 1 goal in 3 games. Mason Lohrei with 1 assist. We'd like to see some other guys step up here. Let's have a full team effort, and let's just bury these Leafs here tonight in Game 6. I don't mean to be kind of pessimistic here today, but the more I think about it, the more it would be just so disappointing to see this happen once again. We know that this is a transition year, but it should be a positive moving forward. You have an opportunity here to advance to the second round, an opportunity to perhaps bury some ghosts from last season by getting another shot at the Florida Panthers, a team that they went 4-0 against in the regular season, as they did against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Just erase, silence all the doubt, silence all the critics. Go out there, play one of your best games of the season so far, and just get it done. We don't need all these questions about Jim Montgomery, who is a very good head coach, who sometimes overcooks the lineup. We don't need these questions about a goaltending controversy. We don't need these questions about Boston's leadership core and whether they're suitable to build around. We don't need these questions about Jake DeBrusk's inconsistency or any of these things. Just win tonight against Toronto, and let's regroup and get ready for the Florida Panthers. Please, I beg you, do not let this series go back to Boston. Finish it tonight. Play like you did in Toronto in games 3 and 4, and just finish it tonight, please. All right? Let's go, Bruins. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. Locked On Boston Bruins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Tomorrow we'll be back to recap what is hopefully a win and look ahead to, round 2. Friend of the podcast, Mayor, jinxed the Bruins yesterday or the other day by saying congrats. I tried to reverse jinx by saying congrats on making it to Game 7. Fingers crossed that works. And we'll talk to you again here tomorrow, friends, on Locked On Bruins. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And wish me luck tonight as it's opening day in my softball league. 6:30 opening pitch. Thank goodness the game starts at 8, so I don't miss too much of it. Peace.